What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are having a great day out there. Time to talk about Ford Motor Company, ticker symbol F. I remember talking about this company a few times here on the channel. Most of the time it's been under the $5, $6, $7 range. Now here we are at $11 per share. So we'll talk about, is there more room to run in this stock? We see over the last year, it's up 24%. Just year to date, up 27%. This stock has been kind of on a rocket ship upwards. We'll keep in mind that this company has a $44 billion valuation. When we walk through the financials, we'll see here they got cash flows of nearly $25 billion in the year. So keep that in mind when we've got a $44 billion valuation on this company. Now, Ford is going to cut back some shifts due to chip shortages. You got to say that kind of slow. So we got some chip shortages. We're seeing this across the entire auto industry. So they're actually having to drop some shifts in the popular F-150. So both of these plants, the F-150 is Ford's like bread and butter. It's what makes them, I would guess, the vast majority of their profits in their vehicle lineup. And if they're going to have to cut that back, that is a problem. So hopefully they're able to shore that up very soon. We're going to jump over the numbers with this one, and then we're also going to jump over to the stock chart. This one's at a really, really interesting level. We'll see what it can do. Can it push through with momentum, or will it get rejected and create maybe kind of like a pullback buying opportunity? Let's jump over the numbers. So we're looking at year end here with Ford. And what I like is they're giving us 18, 19, 20. We basically get a kind of a 3-year view on this one. They start with cash flows. I was trying to think when we were doing Amazon the other day, what's another company that leads with cash flows? And Ford is it. And you can see why when we go through the balance sheet and when we go through the statement of operations. You're going to see exactly why they lead with cash flows, because it is the prettiest of their financial documents. We've got the years end 18 through 20, and we come down here, we see $24 billion worth of cash provided by the operating activities. We see last year we were at 17, and the year before that we were at 15. So they're on fire in terms of cash flows. Why is that? It appears just in the most recent year, they had this decrease in finance receivables. So it's by $12 billion. So that certainly helped bolster things. And then they've got an increase in accounts payable here at about 6.8, although it's been similar to that. It's really this big time financing receivables here went to $12 billion. Now we've got depreciation of tooling and amortization. That's been in that $8 to $9 billion range. That basically all that added up led to a massive $25 billion worth of cash provided by the operating activities. Now, they've got investing activities. Obviously, they got to invest in the business. That has been relatively steady, although it's ticked up in the most recent year. You see we went from 16 to 13 up to 18.6. Ford is reinvesting in the business. I think if you're into this one, it's kind of a speculative play. I mean, any stock under, 10, 12 bucks is somewhat speculative. And so you actually want them to be aggressive in this kind of investment. So that's pretty good. Now, the other thing they're doing is some financial engineering. We've got proceeds from issuance of long-term debt. You see they issued 50 here, 47, boom, up to about $66 billion in the most recent year. But you see they refinanced most of it off. So they have this repayments of long-term debt. They paid off about $60 billion, and they did the same thing in the previous period. So they basically have been, like most companies, and this I think is a good thing to do when interest rates are low, is go ahead and refinance some of your debt. Now, coming down to the statement of operations, be honest with you, not nearly as pretty as cash flows here. So we've got revenues here on the top line. Again, they give us year-over-year view on the top. We've got our automotive revenue. We've gone from 148 down to 143, all the way down to 115. And now we got chip shortages, halting production, at least partially, of the profitable F-150. That's not good. They're going to need to shore that up very quickly. So we see automotive revenues are falling off. Obviously, 2020, difficult year. Okay, I think you could add back in a little bit here because, the pandemic kind of slowed car sales to a certain degree, slowed production as well, made it a little bit difficult for automakers. But we are definitely slowing here. Now we've got some other revenue coming in from Ford Credit and some mobility revenue, which is very small. That gives us total revenues down from 160 to down to 155 last year, all the way down to $127 billion. But I want you to keep in mind, we have a $44 billion valuation on this company. and we got these kinds of sales. So if they can able to turn these around in the other direction, boy, oh boy, this company might have some more room to run. Now, that's not the full story. Guess what? We got to pay for these revenues, and we've got them here in our cost and expensive cost of sales here. Selling and general administrative, and then we've got Ford credit interest as well. That gives us a total cost of $131.55. You guessed it, we made $127. We spent $131. That means we lost $4.4 billion operating the company in 2020. That is maybe why they don't lead with this document, because that's an ugly number considering last year, look, they basically broke even at 574. Year before that, they were doing pretty good. They had $3.2 billion worth of operating income, and we basically reversed that completely down to 4.4. They pay some other interest expense and things like that. That gets us down to a net income down here at a negative $1.2 billion. Okay, we were at positive 2 years ago. We were at positive 3.6. Now we're negative 1.2. The question you might be asking yourself is, can Ford Motor survive these types of losses? And when we come over to the balance sheet, you probably guessed it when we looked at cash flow, see how much they were refinancing that debt. Believe it or not, they can afford it. Take a look. We got marketable securities here and cash equivalents. Add this up, and you're basically at $50 billion. $50 billion in cash. Come over here to the company. The entire company is worth $44 billion. Okay, I know I've been mentioning this a few times, but it's just something that you want to keep in mind. Okay, this company is basically worth, not even how much they have in cash. Now, obviously, that's not the full end of the story, because if they had no debt, this company would be worth way more than it is, but they have lots of debt here. So Ford long-term debt come down here, $87 billion. So, whoa, hello. And then we've got automotive long-term debt. That's stuck in there. There's just look at all these total liabilities come in at $236 billion. Okay, obviously, there's a fair amount of assets in terms of buildings, property, things like that with this kind of company, but take out this $50 billion worth of cash, there's still a lot of liabilities, still a lot of things hanging on this balance sheet. That is why this stock has been beaten down to a certain degree, and why it hasn't, while it has had a nice run over the last year, you see here when we stretch this chart out that it's now just starting to peek its head over where it was just a couple of years ago. In fact, over the last 5 years, this stock is actually down 2%. So if you've been holding this stock for a while, not necessarily a winner. Now, can it keep the momentum going? We see here the stock is trading right here at about $11.55. That's actually really close to what I would refer to as a key level. A key level for this stock is, we'll call it right around $11.66. $11.66 has proven to be, just in the very, very short term, kind of a resistance level for Ford. Okay, it's where it's peaked its head here and got rejected. It came up here, and we basically seen it get rejected again. Now, there's some targets here. If you want to add to Ford, let's just say you're trying to build like a EV kind of portfolio. You've got a little bit of Tesla, you've got some GM, maybe you got some of the startups like NIO and Li Auto and some of these other guys that are out there, and you want to add Ford in there because you think they're going to be playing in that sandbox too. Well, you might see some pullbacks in this stock. I think the $10.20 level would be an interesting one. Now, it would have blown through some support here. We've got some support here underneath. We made kind of a wedge right here. And again, this is just really short term. We don't got a lot of price action to go on this one, because look, this stock has made a nice move just over the last month. This stock has gone from like $8, $9 a share all the way up to 11. So it's made a monster move. You got another little area of support here, about $1 under where we're at today at about $10.54. What I could see happening is Ford kind of consolidates here. Okay, we start creating this kind of sawtooth pattern between, $10.50 all the way up to $11.60. And then on some kind of news then it could break either up or down depending on that type of news. But we've got we've got these chip shortages. That's probably going to cut into at least Q1 numbers, maybe even all the way into Q2 numbers with Ford. So I just keep an eye on that. Any kind of press release around electronic vehicles, if I was Ford's press release person, I would just be pumping those out every day, because those seem to be what investors are soaking up, in the recent hours. So we've got last 6 months, this stock is way up. So Ford, can it keep this momentum going? I think if it can push above this level here, 1167, yes, it can keep this momentum going. Otherwise, I think we can consolidate here in this upper 10 range and then maybe push higher in the coming weeks and months ahead. So we'll see what happens with Ford, but this one's been on a run since we started covering it. Hopefully it will continue if you're out there holding this one. So thanks for tuning in today. That was Ford Motor Company. Good luck with your investments.